AI in art bears resemblance to a seasonal flu epidemic. It comes around, affects practically everybody, goes away for a while, only to come back with an entirely different strain that everyone has to deal with again. And as I slowly picked away at this script, several YouTubers have put out fantastic videos that share some of my sentiments. That said, a lot of the channels I watch are fairly niche, and it may help to put my feelings on generative AI into my own words. This is especially because I try to make my teaching and therefore my videos as down to earth as possible. I ultimately want to show what we have to lose if we allow generative artificial intelligence to dominate our musical intake. Now, I'm pretty sure anyone watching this video has at least an iota of knowledge on GenAI, but just in case you don't, Coursera has a pretty good explanation. Let's acknowledge two obvious negatives. The environmental problems that running these learning machines are causing could be an entire video on its own. In short, it's bad, like very bad. But while I don't want to downplay these data centers' effect on our planet, if the water and electricity consumption problems get resolved, it still leaves us with artistry issues. For example, creators are getting their works used without their permission, nor are they given proper credit. And anyone that's kept an eye on this channel knows that this latter point strikes a major nerve. That said, these prior 2 points seem fairly easy to get people to agree with. However, the human artistic experience and its effect on the psyche and culture seems to be the hardest concept for people to fully understand. Although this concern is mostly seen in non-artists, or at least those that don't cultivate art to a high degree, some highly creative types seem to be neglecting this as well. That's what I want to discuss in this video, because we far surpassed what I hoped but not necessarily expected would happen with this aspect of technology. That people would find AI to be amusing, but ultimately a tool at best and a gimmick at worst, and would move on to the next thing. Now, it's not as if GenAI in music just appeared out of nowhere. It predates Carolina O, Velvet Sundown, Breaking Rust, or other similarly depressing scenarios. An early version of a software called Tone Transfer came to my attention in October of 2020. It allows you to upload a musical line and transform it into a different instrument. And anyone that's been with me since year one remembers the collaborations that Databots did with Meshuggah and Adam Neely. They were able to create, respectively, a never-ending math metal song and an infinitely playing bass solo. We're just gonna take the fact that the video was made 5 years ago and just shove it down into oblivion. Anyway, it's important to note that the data that the machines learn from was given with the musician's consent. I quickly want to dispel a possible presumption here. Just as I've frequently said that there's no such thing as a bad genre of music, there's no such thing as bad technology. Harnessing the power of the atom keeps some of our cities running, but also left massive physical and emotional scars in Japan. And given the proliferation of nuclear weapons afterward, the entire world. The Battle of the Joshes, one of the most heartwarming things to have happened in the past few years, started out as a Facebook group chat. But people also use the internet and social media to do other things. And the same thing applies here. There are ways to use artificial intelligence in the fine arts that are ethical and keep human beings in the creative driver's seat. Some of which I'll provide in a moment. The problem is, that's not how AI is being used or peddled by a long shot, and any tech chads that try to argue otherwise are part of the problem. But let's start with the good stuff. For example, imagine a laundry machine that can detect the color and material of your clothes, along with the severity and chemical composition of the stains and impurities in the clothing, and make suggestions about what kind of wash and dry cycles to use. It'd be even cooler if it can use data from previous washes as intel for further suggestions. For the workplace, I remember Devin Stone's 2023 Wired interview where he points out how AI can help make legal work easier, but you still want a human as your lawyer. And on a musical basis, I can envision two things happening. I haven't specifically done any digging, but it's likely that a lot of music writing software and digital audio workstations already, in a way, do what I'm about to describe. Let's say that you want to compose music in a specific genre or style. An AI could find instruments, plugins, and samples that fit that style and put them in a smart folder for you to access quickly. There's even a way that generative AI can help beginner composers or producers that want to understand a particular genre or style of music. If you prompt the AI with parameters of the genre, such as key signatures, tempo, melodic and harmonic tendencies, and the content of several musicians with their explicit permission, it can generate a short demo showing how a project of that nature might be put together. There are digital audio workstations that already do this to an extent, and for the longest, DAWs and sheet music software had and still have demo files that professional musicians would put together, allowing the customers to see how the work was fleshed out and how to utilize the program at a skillful level. This is not to give consumers something to steal, but something to research, ponder, and be inspired by. One would also hope that budding producers would eventually grow out of this hypothetical Gen AI usage once they find their own process and sound. For the sake of transparency, I've actually used sim separators powered by machine learning in order to get cleaner samples for my music production work, or when I'm trying to edit a video's audio, especially if Audacity or FL Studio won't do the trick. It doesn't make me a hypocrite though. This is essentially a more streamlined approach to what I've already been doing and still do, filtering out unwanted audio and extracting the data that I want. The clips I use either come from my own recordings, or if they're borrowed, it's done in a conscientious way. And if you have problems with sampling in general, then watch episode 6 of Cool Guy Johnson Hates and understand why that position is pretty foolish. But back to the greedy head problem. Corporate types such as CEOs, investors, and record company executives would gladly stay in their bed, consume food through a feeding tube, sew their own pants for someone else to clean up, and literally watch people die if they could continue making money while doing so. Consumers and creators often have to make a compromise with the companies they own, as they have the resources necessary to make highly desired art, music, movies, posters, books, and video games accessible to customers and to give artists, authors, filmmakers, and designers a sustainable income. But these corpos have no shame, and they'll seize any opportunity to do less work and earn the same amount of money or even more money. That includes using generative artificial intelligence to remove humans from the creative equation entirely. The aforementioned tech chads can't play dumb about this because they unquestionably have skin in the game. So understand that the people behind these AI art initiatives are simply trying to make more money. They aren't trying to improve the art making or the art viewing experience. They're remorselessly trying to make it worse. They want people stuck at home, either listening to the slop that major producers would like to put out if they could fire their organic musicians, or listening to the slop that programs such as Suno or Udio will let them generate without any need for true music appreciation. While we, as a species, haven't explicitly said it, and probably haven't even thought about it until the past few years, I think the reason why art is so appreciated is that we knew that there was a human being, another soul, behind it. Someone had to put a lot of time, dedication, and emotion, sometimes emotional turmoil, to produce a work of beauty that not everyone has the skill to do or compare to in terms of extravagance. Take a look at The Old Guitarist by Picasso or At Eternity's Gate by Van Gogh. These are both unmistakable masterpieces of Western art. For people that viewed these works back then and those looking in the present, even if the complete context of the pieces isn't known, the emotion of each painting reaches out and grabs them. Each human will have a unique interpretation and, more importantly, their own thoughts on what must have driven these men to paint what they did and, this is the important part, why they did it. Every piece of true art has a story or will at least evoke one, and we as humans want this. And at some point, for every human, it'll become tiresome to go on an emotional artistic journey only to find out that a computer spat it out, not a fellow Earth dweller who put their heart and mind into it, regardless of how good the art looks. But let's get a bit more scientific and personal. I want to preview an instrument that I more or less built from its simplest template with a primitive but very intuitive synthesizer. The instrument itself is far from done, but listen as I strip it back to its key components and then slowly add them back on. I also spent several minutes figuring out what notes to use, what the ideal vowel sounds were, and what order to stack the effects in. Truth be told, I almost dropped this and tried something else out, but I kept going and I am happy that I did. Every time I'm able to transform the raw sounds I have into something pleasing, that is, me using sophisticated music software, not some machine that I'm prompting, it brings me immense joy. It's a similar feeling to playing basketball and finally tapping into the technique for shooting free throws, putting the last piece on a Lego Death Star, or even cleaning your room. That's dopamine, commonly known as the happy hormone, and it plays a major role in your brain's reward system. And it doesn't take long to discover what other benefits taking part in creative endeavors can do for your mind. Generative AI cannot replace that experience. A machine that can generate art based on your prompts in seconds is no substitute for creating that art yourself. Stop trying to turn a long-standing part of the human spirit into a consumer experience, Michael. And yes, sometimes I hit roadblocks, but the challenge of overcoming those brick walls is a part of the fun. I mean, imagine playing a video game, running into a difficult part of a level, but instead of either figuring out a solution or lowering the difficulty, you just let an AI complete that level. Oh god, that's already a thing, isn't it? So given the mental and emotional boons that art crafted by humans brings us, hopefully you can understand why myself and other creatives don't want these moments boiled down to the same hollow, short-lived dopamine rush that video game battle passes give us. At some point, the AI merry-go-round will get boring. And if we were to get off, would real, substantial, meaningful music still be there if composers, producers, and musicians were kicked to the curb by corporate greed and automated, organized sound makers? Would people be able to appreciate man-made music the way we have for centuries, millennia? Think of all the songs written and recorded throughout history and what meaning they have to you and those you love. Now imagine a world without them. Sounds kind of apocalyptic, doesn't it? That's where things might end up if we're not careful with how GenAI is being used, and if these parasites keep getting their bad behaviors financially rewarded. All the above being said, since Pandora's box is already open, here's what I'm hoping for, not necessarily expecting, when it comes to the proliferation of GenAI usage in the humanities. That AI is mostly used to inspire artistry and help give creators a foundation for their own artistic base, not to simply make art for them. That more of these machines start using works of art with their author's explicit permission, or works that are public domain. That those generating and sharing AI art are transparent about their usage. That people, including tech chads, stop trying to hold machine-generated art to the same creative pedestal as art that is man-made. I mean, no, typing prompts into a generator doesn't make one an artist. As for what I can see happening, I'll start with myself. I don't anticipate myself ever generating and or publishing music made by an artificial intelligence. I don't see what pleasure there is in a machine making music for me when I know that there's more pleasure to be gained in simply making the music myself. The only way I can see myself using AI music is for the purpose of research. In the worst case scenario, if I do wind up using programs to generate music for me, it'll be inspiration to eventually make music by my own hands. I realize that I say this from a position of convenience. I don't make any money off of my music. I don't depend on my songwriting as a form of income, and not everybody can say that. However, even if it were my main form of making money, I'm not the type to stick around if I'm miserable. If composing and producing stops being fun, I would simply stop doing it. As for the wider music world, GenAI music is going to make life more difficult for us music purists, but human-made music isn't going away anytime soon. In fact, I feel like live music and improvised music will become more important than ever. History has proven that musicians are insanely stubborn, and in this case, I mean it in a positive way. While the news surrounding the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra wasn't pleasing, city-based symphonies, community bands, military ensembles, and community or faith-based choirs are keeping the traditions of classical music alive and well. Even as we face the specter of technological takeover, people still find it entertaining to watch friends, loved ones, or just people honing their craft perform organized sound in person, often paying for this privilege. And Lord knows how many groups, clubs, and musicians continue to perform the United States' most important contribution to music as we know it. Yep, I'm talking about jazz. The genre that relishes in experimentation lives on, both in its more or less pure form and in the genres of music that derive from it, including, but certainly not limited to, funk, hip-hop, and rock music. I want to put emphasis on musical improvisation. Given how technology marches on, I'd imagine that someone will eventually develop an AI that can generate on-the-spot pitches and rhythms based on the chords that it picks up on a microphone. But I'm hard-pressed to believe that it'll be as entertaining as watching a human do the same thing with their instrument or their voice. Because that machine won't be able to understand its fellow musicians or the audience the way that a vocalist or instrumentalist would when making up music on the fly. How is the audience responding to the musical lines? How will the musician alter their approach based on the crowd's feedback? Even if the chord structure is well known, where is the rest of the ensemble going rhythmically, pitch-wise, emotionally? How well does the soloist get along with the ensemble? Are they friends, family? Can they ride out the musical waves together? What key events, life decisions, and schooling, or lack thereof, led these beautiful people to this moment in their journey of organized sound? I know that it's difficult to put into truly logical terms, but there's electricity when musicians are jamming together. Actually, that took a bit of a literal turn, because brain engagement is higher during a live musical performance with human beings versus an audio or video recording of a similar nature. Once again, the soul beats the machine. The ultimate question is perhaps the most important one. Is music composed by human means going to fade away into history?
Not on my watch!
I sincerely doubt it. Theaters still perform Shakespeare long after film was invented, refined, and turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Even as visual art, both static and animated, thrives in the digital realm, people still pay money to see the Statue of David, Mona Lisa, and their local artists or museums. And I'm not picking sides. The world benefits from both theater and cinema, both the accessibility of internet-based works and masters of previous centuries. I'm also not saying that there won't be obstacles or reasons to be afraid. There are definitely questions that still need answering for multiple career fields and areas of interest, and there's still lots of disruption to come from the progression of generative artificial intelligence. But the Skynet takeover of things we love isn't inevitable. Our wallet is our vote. Man-made music and art in general can always have an audience. I'm definitely going to do what I can to make sure that this happens, and if you're watching this video, I hope you plan to do the same. Until next time, peace.